Hi everyone, my name is Sébastien Lagree. I am the creator and founder of Lagree Fitness. Today I want to talk to you about choosing the right kind of equipment for your studio, especially if you are going to be operating in a small studio. So what is a small studio? A small studio is a studio about 1,000, 1,200 square feet or 100, 120 square meter. Choosing the right kind of equipment is important because it's going to make a huge difference in your bottom line, and I want to demonstrate this in this video. Now, every day we get inquiries about the Megaformer and the Evo. You know, people want to know which version of the Megaformer is the best, or they want to know if the Evo is better than the Megaformer, because the Megaformer has become the OG of Lagree Fitness, and that's what people want, and that's what people are fixated on. However, do you know that we have other machines? We have the Micro, we have the Mini and the Mini Pro. The reason I'm telling you about this machine is because you can actually fit more machines into the same amount of space. So if you are going to be operating with a small studio, you may want to consider the smaller machine because you can put way more machine instead of putting 10 or 12 megas. So the Megaformer takes about 100 square feet to operate, give or take. Which means that if you are going to be operating with a studio that is 1,000 square feet or 100 square meter, you're going to be able to fit about 10 Megaformers. Now, 10 Megaformer Evo, right? They're about the same. Now, if your space is a perfect rectangle, and by that I mean perfect rectangle, and there's no column inside the studio, you might be able to squeeze in an extra 11th or 12th Mega or Evo. I don't want to say that you will be able to. So let's say you can only put 10 Megaformers in 1,000 square feet, but you can put more Micros, you can put more Mini and Mini Pro. So for example, in that same amount of square feet, you could put 13 Mini Pros, you could put 15 Minis or 20 Micros. And that's really what I want to talk about. I really want to talk about, give you an example of what your investment and revenues would be like if you actually shifted to a smaller machine. So let's talk about the investment. And let's go with one scenario. You have 1,000 square feet and you're thinking about getting 10 Megaformers, okay? So you have 10 Megaformers, it's going to cost you about $100,000 in equipment. The $100,000 is not including the accessories, the shipping, and the crating, okay? So all the numbers I'm going to give you is just the cost of the machine. So give or take, you buy 10 Megaformers, about $100,000 for that 1,000 square feet. So now let's say you're going to buy the Mini Pro instead. So the Mini Pro, you can fit about 13 Mini Pros. So already with the 13 Mini Pros, you're only going to spend about $40,000 to $65,000, depending on the configuration of the Mini Pro. So you're talking about spending 40 to 65% of the cost of the Mega, which is essentially a 60 to a 35% saving. Now let's say that you're going to go with the Mini. So you can put more Mini than Mini Pro because the Mini is also shorter than the Mini Pro. So now let's say you can put 15 Minis. So what is the cost of 15 Minis? Well, the cost is going to go down to $37,500 to $60,000, depending again on the configuration. So now you're talking about, again, another 60 to 40% saving. But when we go down to the Micro, that's when you do the most amount of saving because the Micro, you can put 20 Micro in the space of 1,000 square feet. So when you put 20 Micros, depending on the configuration, you're going to spend $12,000 to $40,000. So we're talking about an 88 cost saving compared to the Megaformer to 60%. So the Micro is going to give you the most amount of saving. Now, I know not everybody's excited about the Micro because people think it's a smaller machine. And I highly recommend that you try the machine first before coming up to that point because a lot of people, I say the Micro is more difficult than the Mega. Now, also, I'm not trying to sell you the Micro, okay? I'm just trying to make you aware of the differences in the numbers, okay? So, in addition of the reduction in the cost of the equipment, you're going to pay less. You're going to pay less for licensing. You're going to pay less for shipping, and you're going to pay less for the accessories as well. Now, I know that the rent, the tenant improvements, the cost of the trainer, all that stuff is going to be the same, but you're going to save big on the cost of the equipment. Now, another benefit about contemplating the Micro is that the Micro can be used outside. So technically, you could open a studio without having a studio. You could literally open with micro classes and have all your micro classes outside. And then you would save on location, rent, tenant improvement, and so on. We already have studios now or licensees operating without a studio, and they're loving it. They're saving so much money on all of these additional expenses. So just think about this for the investment. Now let's talk about the potential revenues. So for the revenues, I know I talked to many licensees and everybody's concerned about the micro because they're like, well, I can't charge as much as the mega. I don't think it's necessarily true. I think you can charge about the same prices. Most sessions anyway for the mega end up around $22, $24, $25, maybe under $20. It's the same price for the micro. But let's say for a minute that you're right. Let's say that we are going to charge more money for the mega and less for the micro. So let's go back to our scenario where we have 10 megaformers. We are operating in a space of 1,000 square feet. So you're going to have 10 megaformers. So let's say you're going to charge the average of $30, okay? $30. So that's going to be a total revenue of $300 per session, right? 10 megaformers times $30 per session, $300 per session. Now let's look at the Mini Pro. And let's say the Mini Pro, you're going to charge less because you feel that the Mini Pro is not on the same level as the Mega. Let's say that you're going to charge both $25 for the Mini and the Mini Pro. So you have 13 Mini Pros. That's going to give you already $325. You're going to make $25 more by having just more Mini Pros at a lesser cost per session, a lesser price per session. Let's go into our scenario with the Minis. Now we have 15 Minis. 15 Minis at $25 is $375. Now you're already making $75 more than a class for the Mega and $50 more than a class with the Mini Pro. But let's look at the Micro. The Micro, you're going to put 20 micros, and let's say you're going to do a cost reduction to $20. So now you're going to charge $10 less than you charge for the Mega. But you have 2 times the amount of the micros that you have megaformers. So now you're going to have 20 micros at $20. You're going to make $400. So that's an extra $100 per class that you're making compared to the Mega. Now, I know that this math is very simple because I know people buy packages. Some people buy a session, one session at a time. Some people buy monthlies and so on. But the math is the same, okay? The math will hold up, depending on the amount of machine. And basically, this point is to illustrate that if even at a lower price per session, the more machines you have, the more revenues you are going to make per studio. So now you can already see if you are comparing, let's say you have 1,000 square feet to play with, and now you're comparing the two extreme, 10 mega versus 20 micros. And again, I'm not trying to push you that direction, but I'm trying to make you aware that there's a real difference in the balance sheet, in your books, in your bank statements. You're going to buy 10 megaformers, it's going to cost you about $100,000. Now you're buying 20 micros, it's going to cost you, let's say, $20,000. So you're already saving $80,000 on the equipment. Plus you're saving on the cost of the license, you're saving on the cost of the accessory, shipping, and crating. But now that you have the 20 micros, you're already making $100 more per session, right? If you're charging $20, you have 20 micros versus $30 for 10 megas. So I want you to start to look at the numbers because you're right, you might realize that, that actually the micro may actually make more sense. So if you have not yet been on the micro, on the Mini Pro, you want to open a studio, I highly recommend that you try these machines because that may sway your mind. It would be a considerably less investment, and you get to make more money. Now, you can always upgrade, right? So if you get 20 micros and ultimately you really want to get the Mega, you can always get the Mega with the revenues you make with the micro. You can always upgrade your license and change to the Megaformer. But I really want you to start to think about optimizing your room occupancy, especially for a small studio and especially for even smaller studio. If you have only 600 square feet to play with, there's a huge difference between putting 6 megaformers or Evo and 12 micros. It will change. It's also the energy in the room. When you have 20 people in the room, the energy is very different than when you only have 10 or 6 people in the room. So definitely think about this point as I'm talking to you. And if you are an old licensee of ours, I'm not so much talking about you because 10 was actually the original number for megaformer licensees. So there's many licensees right now opening 10 megaformers. But unfortunately, this is no longer a number that is, I think, lucrative for people. I think that if people really want to make a lot of money, you really have to consider operating at 20 and higher. And why is that? Was very simple. Number one is we have a lot of licensees now at 10 and 12 machines, okay? But we have an equal amount of copycats. Copycats are also going to operate at 10 or 12 machines. Now, the thing with copycats, though, is they don't have the technology in their machine to handle a higher volume. So if you are now at 20, you are already outpacing the copycats because not only you have twice as many machines as them, you can be more competitive with your pricing, but also when you have 20 machines, you're going to make more money. You can afford better trainer. You can also pay your trainers more money. So if your copycats come over, and copycats always try to recruit within the Lagree licensees or the Lagree network. Why? Well, because they don't have their own training method, right? They're trying to copy Lagree, right? So they hire within they try to hire within the network. But if people are coming to you, and if people are trying to poach your trainers, it's not going to be advantageous for them because they're not going to be able to pay the amount that you're paying your trainers because you have twice as many people. So not only you're making more money when you have more machines, you're more competitive with your price, but you can also you can also afford to pay your trainers more money and you can retain those trainers and you're not worried about other studio poaching your trainers. And it works phenomenally that way. Now I want to talk about another point about the future of Lagree. And as you know, all the technology that I'm building right now is to handle more machine at a studio. For me, 20 is the new 10. And every licensee who come to me and want to open the studio, I tell them the same story. It's okay to open a 10 or 12 machines, but I think that you should consider opening into a bigger space so that you can grow the number of machines. And I highly recommend people to open 20 machines. Even with the Mega or the Evo, I highly recommend people to open with more machines because you're going to make a lot more money and it makes your studio even more untouchable. Now, the technology that I have right now, like for example, or the Evo 2 with the lightning spring change, with that technology, you can have up to 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 machines at a studio. Yes. And all the new technology that I'm developing is to create a better workout at a higher volume of people because that is where the industry is going. There are already a number of studios operating in the world where we have over 20 machines. Some studios have 22, 23 machines. I'm looking forward, the first studio that's going to open with 30 machines. I know the Megaformer studio is already looking for places to put 30 machines, so it will be 3 rows of 10s. And I highly recommend you guys to do the math, to start to consider the number of machines. And when you open a studio, really consider the size of the studio because the bigger the studio, the more untouchable you are going to be and the more money you're making. It's exponential. To give you an example, at the Megaformer studio, they operate with 20 Megaformers at 2 of their locations. And they have a wait list of 10 people already at the 20 Megaformers. So for them, it totally makes sense to go to 30. And that is something that I want you to consider because crowds begets crowds. So if you open a studio with 20 machines, or you don't have, once you have 20 machines at your studio, you're going to realize that the word of mouth that's going to come at your studio is going to be 2, 3 times greater than when you had only just a few machines or 10 machines. So this is something I want you to really consider. I want you to think about it. If you have any questions, of course, you can always ask me. You can email me, info@lagreefitness.com. And again, my name is Sébastien Lagree. Thank you for watching.